Thank you everyone for being here. I know how busy everyone is and at this time of the year, and we love giving this insight back. I, as a mother, am quite passionate about this sector. I founded the business when my first child was 6 months. Crazy, don't do that ever. I was learning to be a mother and a founder at the same time. I didn't know which was harder. On one day I would win in one area and then fail in the other, and then I could go back to the other side and go, actually I can win here. So yeah, it's been quite a journey, but how important it is the work that every one of you do, because you do enable women like myself, parents, to actually live out their potential. If everyone, and also get some sanity, it's really hard. And then I also decided to have B2. Don't know what I was thinking, right in the middle of the business scaling globally. And again, my children were those that used the sector 5 days a week, 2 kids, your lifetime value of over 100K, the very happy parent. If you ever rang me and said, Kabir's been bitten, I would say, is he okay? Is he smiling? Yep, he's fine. He's in the sandpit. I'm like, ding, great, let's move on. So I'm your ideal customer. But in all seriousness, sometimes we forget how much gets enabled by the work that gets done, and so much and allows parents to participate. So I've been in this sector. It really started off by me writing to my son. My son went to a childcare, and I wrote to the CEO on LinkedIn and I said, you know what, we work in retail and this is the ROI. I had done some numbers and I think you can do this. And she thought, crazy mum, she's talking about ROI, children, occupancy, all of this. Let's just meet her anyway, because you have to meet those crazy parents. You don't know what they're on about. And I met and we presented to the private equity owners at the time, and she said, wow, this is something. And here we are sort of 7 or 8 years in, working with some of the best in the world. And it all started from those humble beginnings of really solving a problem, finding the win-win in the sector of happy families, sustainable businesses and happy regulators. The holy, trinity there is very hard. One of them is becoming harder to manage in different markets. This particular report, can everyone hear me? Because I'm not sure if the mic's on. Yeah, I do have a mother's voice, so even without the mic, it's pretty loud. This report is really exciting. It's really fresh. It's only 2 weeks old, the data. So it's really relevant. We know a lot of change is happening in the sector, but we also know a lot of change is happening in the world. Boy, in the 2 decades that I've been alive, according to Ben, no, it's quite a few more. We haven't seen such a fluctuating moment of employment numbers, geopolitical tensions, demographic movements in people. And whenever there is so much flux in business, insight is gold. In BAU, insight is silver, I would say. But in moments like this, having a crystal ball and having leading indicators on is really valuable, because investment decisions are shaky. You don't know which way to go. So this report, we didn't plan it with all this geopolitical and AI stuff. We planned it as normal, but it's even more relevant now. What is the market thinking? There isn't a day globally where childcare is not in the news, or early education. It seems like the press is after it in every which way, for good and bad reasons. We know in every manifesto, whether you're a left-wing politician or a right-wing, you are talking about early education because it's a really important topic to parents. So, funding changes, regulation changes, staff shortages, how do we get through it? So it's very tricky what we're managing, and we're very passionate about the sector. We're not here to just talk about technology and how this works. Knowing the nuances of what everyone is dealing with and how much flux there is really important. So we're going to get into what are the market trends. This report will be shared with you in a week or so with all the annotations, but feel free to take notes as well. So overall, none of this is news to you. I guess the age of parents using early education, and this report covers early education plus wraparound, and they have been separated, so we know we have partners in both areas. So we know parents are getting slightly older. There's a larger group of 35 to 50-year-olds. Most people are married, middle to high income, but we know more participation because of government funding is entering from lower income families as well. 62% has both parents working in the UK market, but that's not news. The news is that 40% doesn't have both parents working. So people use childcare for other reasons than just keeping Johnny safe. And gone are the days where people didn't have any understanding about the benefits of early education. Early education now, more and more studies are showing, is essential for developmental needs. So a lot of what we're going to get into, and really important in our go-to markets, that there is a need and an understanding from the customer's perspective on, it's not just about keeping Johnny safe and happy and behind a fence. So what is the shifting usage patterns? So the purple bar is 2026 right now, like 2 weeks ago. So UK, which is different from the ANZ reports and the North America reports we're releasing, you have had a shift of more 4 and 5 day users and a slight decrease in the 3 and 2 day users. So that's great news. Your market has actually expanded, your total addressable market, and the assumptions may be that 3 day funding has come in, so people are putting an extra day in. In Australia, for example, the 4 and 5s have reduced and gone back to 3 this 2026. So their enrollment patterns are changing. But in UK, the medium frequency is a third, but you're starting to see a bleed into the 4 and 5 day group. So people are adding those extra days. This could be because of a return to work. This could also be because of funding. This could also be because job security isn't what it used to be. So people are, so that's good news for us. Whether your own databases look like this is really location dependent as well, if you're in central London versus, but overall in the market, and this data set is representative of UK. It's not concentrated just in London. It does cover the right regions and it's representative. So it's really good for everyone to understand. So the 4 and 5 day user suddenly has different needs, and we're going to get into that. The way we serve the 3 day user is not the same as the way we should serve the 4 and 5. So the very first question is, what do people use Nursery for? Like, obviously we know it's for keeping children safe, but number one is I use Nursery because I work. Okay, that's 50%. However, social interaction and educational development are really high up as well. Why is this important? If in our go-to markets, we really talk about, we provide social interaction, child development, social development, that's going to resonate with the market, because parents perceive that they're sending their children into care, not just because they go to work, but to provide these really essential things. So education development and social interaction, really, really high. They do believe. So from a go-to-market, we always knew this in the sector because you guys understand the research behind this, but the market is also understanding. So in our go-to-markets or propositions, we have to include, or there is real benefit in resonating with the customer's need of providing social needs for their children. Especially there's a huge deficit post-COVID where parents feel like some of their children didn't get the social needs that they wanted. Now we always ask, well, you say that we give you social development, so why don't you use us more? We want people to enroll not just for 1 or 2 days, but for more, 4 or 5, the full week, because Johnny's more settled, we can get more development, we don't have to serve 100 customers to get occupancy. The number one reason is even interesting in this market than others. In other markets, it's like, no, it's a price issue or we can't afford it. In the UK right now, lots of people are saying, I don't believe Johnny's settling in. So because he's not settled, or the perception of not being settled. Remember, it's all perception, it's parents, maybe their idea of what settlement looks like. Do we have a scorecard of, in week 1, we want to see him do these activities, that makes it settle. Week 3, we need these activities, tick, he's in the sandpit. Week 4, this is our settlement playbook. If he's doing all this, he's settled. Are we communicating? Because the current perception in the market is I'm not sending Johnny even more days. Johnny's going to feature a bit. He's fictitious, but I'm sure there's one out there. Because Johnny's settling in slower than we perceived. So parents are more anxious about, is this right? So anything we can do in our communication to show that very well settled is likely to increase usage. Number 2 is too expensive. There's not much we can do without losing margins or being unsustainable. So let's leave that aside. And other things are that, they might want other activities. So there's this whole competitive market standing up of tuition, of music classes, dance classes, where people are investing even in younger age groups. It's not just in the most, older age groups. In wraparound care, different. We know funding isn't there fully yet. I can see in the newspapers that it's coming later in 2026. There's a lot of talk about that, so that's going to change the market. But the biggest competitor there is school and activity-based needs. The tennis club, the chess club. There's a lot of competition in sporting clubs that are taking away from the traditional wraparound sector. So how do we manage that competitor, which is very specialized? And obviously they have other care options. Now, we're going to get into the early part of the journey. Everyone has a demand side challenge right now where everyone's running for tours, those conversions. When we finally get that customer who has interest, what is the number one factor that they're looking for? So the purple is nursery, safe facilities. So in Maslow's hierarchy, safety is number one. And guess what? In the news, globally, there's been more talk or lack of safety. So there is not enough reinforcement you can do right now in terms of the lowest part of the pyramid. We are safe. These are the checks and balances we have. Number 2 is communication, and then qualified educators. How we actually calms out the fact, and most organizations here in the room are the professionally run larger organizations where you have, not only do you have qualified educators, you invest in the educators' ongoing education and lots of programs internally. But are we commsing that out? That our educators missing this week, they've gone on to doing these special trainings. It's all about reinvesting. So any communication around how much, and not just once off, it has to be a trickle about educator qualification. Investment in qualification is going to help not only at the buying mode. In wraparound care, it's different. They're not looking so much for educator qualification or child development. They're looking for ease. It's all about make it easy for me. I'm a frazzled parent. I'm dealing with school. I'm dealing with sporting activities. I'm dealing with, by the time they probably got a mortgage as well, by the time kids are in school. I want ease of access. I don't want to have to deal with parking and parking fines and picking up. I want more better opening hours. There's a real push because guess what? The return to work has happened and people are having to commute and the trains are not really reliable. And I'm being nice. And so for them, opening hours up. But even in childcare, there is this 81% said that they would like some level of flexibility on opening hours. Take my kids longer, basically. There's a market there. I mean, people want it. So there is a significant amount of churn in the market, but this is not just in childcare. There's a couple of other sectors we're working with that have occupancy as their main metric. Everyone is seeing churn because the world is in generally a little bit more volatile. Families, the world globally doesn't just get volatile, but families as well. Mortgages are going up. I know you guys raised interest rates last week. So people are rethinking every decision. We are not in BAU. So churn is going to stay. How do we make sure we're creating a little bit more of a moat? Because people are rethinking everything all the time. They don't believe they're in steady state. So in the UK, 23% have changed nursery providers over the last 12 months. That's a huge number. Now, that may not correlate to your own database because you may be an amazing provider and really good at what you do. Some are on the other side. Some would have had more churn than 23%. The number one reason was dissatisfaction with health, safety, well-being, communication support as the second one. So not hearing enough is making people jittery and driving churn. In wraparound care, it's more around communication. Communicate to me. And anyone that came last year, the communication needs of individuals are going up like crazy. Like now you can order on Uber Eats and you can watch the thing being made, and then now it's packed and he's got it on the motorbike and it's coming and he's driving through the streets. Think about the user or the consumer. They can't differentiate that easily between a food delivery provider, a dentist, and a childcare provider. They suddenly know that I need that level of control over things. Now, we can't do that in early education. However, they're used to being communicated to or over communicated to. So once a week, once a quarter newsletters, like those things, they're like, give me more, I want more. Like, how do we do that without disturbing the actual operating rhythm of the child and the service, and not turning into just a communication engine and not a developmental engine? So, but it's a challenge. The communication gap in most industries is struggling, even in retail. How do we manage it? It doesn't all have to be digital communication. Last year we did a deep dive on communication, and actually parents want more face-to-face communication. They're over digitized. They're like, oh my God, I don't know what's happening. Can you just let me know Johnny's doing well? Can we have in last year's report, we also actually did a deep dive on this. They're also wanting some sort of parent-teacher, sessions, and letting people know Johnny's doing this, and that face-to-face is really valued right now. So this time we did a deeper dive on churn, because churn is really expensive, not just from an acquisition, but from a settling and retaining the customer perspective. So in nursery, those that churned, we asked them, when did you churn? Did you churn in the first month? Because that should be completely avoidable. Someone did all that effort, they went through the process with you, and then they churned. So the maximum churn is happening in the first 1 to 3 months, and according to us, almost 90% of this is avoidable. 10%, the family circumstances could have changed. Mum could have lost a job, dad they could have suddenly have to move, someone could have got unwell. But in the first 3 months of enrollment, something didn't happen. Johnny didn't settle, or the other provider was chasing them. Remember, the marketing engines of the competitor are still there in the room for the first 3 months. They haven't left. So they're like, why don't you come and try? Are you sure Johnny's settled? So we've got to know that just because we've acquired a customer, actually the best brands in the world, some of which we're talking to, your acquisition doesn't stop till month 3 is over. In fact, some are pushing it to month 6, saying we are still in the acquisition funnel because there is enough supply in the market that someone in the first 6 months, if something doesn't go right, they're going to switch quite easily because the other tour is fresh in their head. The other brand is talking to them. There's, everything looks greener on the other side. So actually, let's look at acquisition as the first 6 months journey until we're cemented in the routines and everyone's settled in. So 25 plus 40, 65% of those that churned in the first 6 months. That is a huge number. We should not have lost. And even it could have been a small thing. It could have been that when someone joins a nursery, the teachers are not as aware in the first 3 to 6 months that this person is very easily churnable because of the options available. They've just done the search, and the search is very new in their mind. So this is something that is worth looking at as you go back into your strategic meetings. Can we look at acquisition post coming in and post the first 3 months. Let's just still think that we're in acquisition mode, checking in with them, making sure we're reporting into them, communication levels are different. Head office also checking in with them, not just the center manager, because they've got enough to do. Now, we then asked, well, in the next 12 months, which one of you are looking around? What is the impending churn in the market? This is really interesting. So in nursery, 45% unlikely to switch. So that's cemented in. Great. Not so great as well, because we're all looking to acquire market share. So that one is cemented in. 28% are saying might switch. Might in market research means not really, but if something really, really goes wrong, I'm going to look around. I'm not like fully happy with what's happening, but I'm not. And then 26%, that's a large percentage. A quarter is saying likely to switch, which is good news also for the great providers, because it's not like every enrollment is set in stone and we're only waiting for new babies to be born to gain market share. A quarter of the market is saying, I'm highly likely to switch. I'm not happy. It's quite a volatile market still. In wraparound care, a little bit more stable because they have the location advantage, the school advantage, and you're not as big a deal because the school itself is providing a lot of developmental needs, right? So this is one to look at. There is, and when we release this in the next 12 months, we'll see how that played out. But churn is likely to still be quite a thing. How much feedback, how much of an eye are we keeping? How much of an eye? So about half the market looks at formal feedback and the other half has very informal methodologies. So that's, basically not having any smoke detectors on that impending churn. Now, which drivers are churn drivers? Which ones are retention? Very fancy. My data science team made a very fancy graph, whatever I say. Basically, what's table stakes? What if you get wrong, you will churn? And what if you get right is a factor that keeps people coming? And I guess location is a retention factor for sure. And some of these others, safety, for example, is more of a churn factor. If you're keeping something safe, then they won't churn, but safety alone won't keep them there. It's like table stakes. So we'll share the report and you can look a bit deeper into this. Now, this year we didn't do a deep dive on communication because we're all communicated out and we've had to work so hard to communicate with parents and look at apps and not that problem is going away, but we thought we'd do a different deep dive. And this year the deep dive is really on acquisition, the tour experience. What is the market saying? And how do we make tours a little bit better? So we really asked, when you're looking for early education or wraparound care, where do you search? What is the very top of funnel? Where are you looking? So Google search, 37%. So everyone thinks AI, they're just doing, it hasn't happened yet at a large scale. Probably in next year's report, I see this rapidly changing. Google is still online reviews, 31% look at that before they even book a tour. That's really, really important. So if we're not managing our online reputation, recommendation is a close third. So they're looking, they're asking their girlfriends, their boyfriends, their circles, their families, their cousins, where do you go there? Because of all this flux in the market where everyone's a little bit unsure about safeguarding and everything, how is it going? And then provider group websites, directives, all of that. When asked in the last 12 months, how many of you actually flirted with the idea of searching, looked at the dating? They're dating someone else here. They're looking at another provider. They're searching, right? More than a third of the market is searching. They did put a search in to see what's around. Maybe a new one has popped up in the area because we know supply has arrived, where 2 years ago there was no supply and demand was really high. So a lot of people are searching. We also did a deep one question because of all this noise in the media, both in this market and the ANZ market around safeguarding. How confident do parents feel about health, safety and well-being standards in their current provider. So really good news here. In their current provider, they feel very safe, but in the market as a whole, they don't feel very confident. So that's actually a competitive moat, that people are not going to be that quick to switch just by looking at sexy marketing, because there is this thing going on where I feel currently safe, I feel rest assured. We got to reinforce the safety and security, because in their main provider, most of the market is feeling very high. There is a quarter of the market that's saying neutral about the safety. So those are the ones that are likely to churn, because in the needs, that is the lowest. But in the industry has lost confidence levels right now as a whole. But in the main provider, the confidence is still there. I mean, no one would actively send their children to a place where they didn't have confidence in safety. That would be considered being negligent. But there is a large chunk that is feeling neutral right now. So there's a question mark. So they might be looking around, they might be asking you more questions, they may be being more jittery and getting more like triggered on small things that are happening. That's one to watch. So that's how it would show up. More tickets, more complaints, more reassurances are needed. We also asked, well, what drives confidence in health and safety and well-being? It's very well to say we are safe and we're going to let you know we're safe. We are ticked off by the regulator. That's not the only thing they're looking at. So when asked what gives you confidence, educator supervision and attentiveness. Does the educator look like they know my child? Do they know the child's name, the basic habits of the child? This perception of attentiveness, and not just people are coming through the factory line. So how we as a sector drive a perception that we are attentive is a big challenge, but it's one to look at because it's really valued. It's valued as much as the basics of cleanliness and no like water lying around and people tripping. There is this thing that you're not being attentive to my child. So how do we drive that? There is a very close relationship between the educator and the child, which is 95% the case because the child spends so much time. But how do we drive that perception out into the parent community? That's really valued in terms of safety and well-being of the child, that the educator knows everything about my child and knows my child. Then we said, okay, well, how many of you have completed at least one tour in the last 2 years? Like who's shopped around, who's looked around, even though you are in care already? So 28% said no, we have done no tours, very low. 72% said in the last 2 years we've done a tour, another tour away from our main provider. So people are shopping around even if they're not moving, which is also great news for the very best of providers, that just because someone is enrolled somewhere and they're coming through a tour and you ask them, well, have you already got an enrollment? And they say yes, does not mean they won't switch. The market is fairly open to switching. 21% did one, but on average people did 2 tours. That's quite a high consideration to spend that investment in doing 2 tours. That means they are open to better. They are looking for better. That's something I would take away from this slide. Now, those that did the tours, the 72% that did the tours, which is a large sample, what did you like about that? So people really said, well, high satisfaction on welcome and friendliness, tick. So this has diminishing returns now. If in your playbooks you are trying to do more welcome and friendliness, we're already scoring very high on that. So don't worry too much. Follow-up comms, very good. So the market has really matured from when my 13-year-old went in, when there was no follow-up comms, there wasn't that marketing. Even within 3 years, when my B2 went in, I could feel like there was proper sales teams in play now, or at least people who were following up. So follow-up comms, people are saying, are very good. Booking, they're saying it's okay. Remember, this is a generation that is booking, that is used to booking the Amazon orders, clicking here, booking their dentist without ringing, cancelling, rebooking, using Calendly's. If our booking systems do not meet their current booking standards, even in another industry, they're like, oh, there's so much friction, I've got to ring someone. No, sorry, I need to cancel, rebook, rearrange. I don't want to talk to a human. So booking is a differentiator right now. If you can make that booking process a little bit less friction and use some smoothness in that, you're going to differentiate yourself from other tour providers. Unique value proposition, so hard, right? It's very hard to be unique when most of the world's kids in their early education need the same things. They need care, they need socialization, they need the sandpit, they need friends, they need a bit of whacking around in the playground, a bit of tug of wars. Everyone needs a unique proposition. It's so hard. So they're saying, the customers are saying, or the market is saying, I don't quite understand how you are different from the others. Can you articulate it better? Really hard to do. And then some are saying, please explain the fees. I'm so frazzled. My bank's explaining my mortgage. People are explaining new things to me. And your fees, like, I don't know what's going on. So huge opportunity. Can we dumb it down? Can we dumb it down? Can we make it simple? Like, it's all inclusive. This is it. There's an opportunity. They want it even. I know so many of us have given calculators and made that easy, but it's still too hard for that sleep deprived parent. Remember, they're coming in from a toddler land. Can we make them? And can we make any uncertainty go away? They're talking about uncertainty in the fees. So they're still feeling a bit not sure. Can we make it so that they understand it to be exact? Not more, not less, all inclusive. This is how much is going to go out of your pocket. Even we can't understand that on most days with the regulation. So, I mean, good luck, but that's what they're looking for. And the last one is the biggest opportunity. Ask questions. So they said that there's not enough time where I'm allowed to ask questions. So if you think about traditional sales processes where there's always enough time to do discovery, are we enabling our frontline teams to ask questions, or most of their playbooks about telling about the service? So some of the brands are experimenting with locking in question time, saying, we know you're going to have questions after this tour. Instead of saying, do you have questions? It's actually opening it up to questions and saying, we know every parent will have questions. We have questions. We really want to get to know your child. 15 minutes post-tour, we're going to have open question time. That's that discovery moment where most brands or consumers are saying, the questions, we didn't get enough time or answers, or there's not enough space to ask those questions. And there's a huge opportunity to differentiate the tour at this moment. Question time. And the last one is curriculum explained. I think curriculums are getting very complicated. Because of the differentiation need in the market and research is moving, parents are coming in after ChatGPTing what a curriculum should look like and asking you a million questions, and you're like, sandpit. I mean, like, what does a curriculum need to look like? I'm a mother of 2 kids. Yes, it needs to be a lot, but how much curriculum can they chew? However, we've got to respect the market. Parents are saying, explain. I want to understand the curriculum a bit more easily. So if there's one thing to walk away with is this area over here. Can we slow down the process and give room for questions? And the hypothesis is if you give room for this, you probably solve for this one as well. Curriculum explained. If they have doubts on that curriculum, and if that space is given, they're probably going to get the answers as well. Rather than the pamphlet, the brochure, the 1-minute spiel on how that curriculum is different. They have questions. So we need to do better discovery. There's a huge need in the market to find that match and give parents the time to ask questions. Now, we also asked those that did the tours and ended up actually converting. What made them convert? The educator's interaction with the children, very hard to scale. You can't control that. It could be a bad day in the office. It could be a silly child. It could be anything, right? You know, who goes home and has a perfect day with the children? Safe environment and facilities. Remember, this is perception of. This is not that people have unsafe environments. And curriculum. Understanding of curriculum. Communication. What we also asked, well, what those tours that you didn't end up converting on, what was the big red flag? More time to ask questions and being less rushed. Don't want to be rushed through this tour experience. It's very hard to achieve when you've got 100 settings and people are coming in. So can we at head office create the space of question time so that it's not all left to the center director to answer questions while running the operations? More time to ask questions and less rush. More reassurance on health and safety, and better explanation on fees and inclusions. These are the three things. Because it didn't happen, they didn't convert. So we asked both the positive and the negative. So if you're not doing one of these, you're probably going to lose some. If you're doing that, gain some. So I've gone through a lot. Okay, where the market is, the churn. Churn is not a bad thing because it doesn't mean they're churning from you. They could be churning from less well-organized operators ready to come into a more organized setting. Sometimes when we hear churn, we only think about our churn, so it's not really about that. This is the whole market. Now we want to get into personas. We always talk about these three personas, so I'm not going to do a deep dive on these three personas. You know, we went to communication, we did curriculum last year, and this year we did that acquisition. But we always talk about these three personas, the behavioral segments that sit in childcare or early education. On the left-hand side, we have the explorer, the person doing 2 days, 1 to 2 days a week, high cost to serve. Johnny's not settled. He comes in for 2 days, 5 days he's missing, comes back in. Obviously, he's not settled because, you know, it's tough. And explorers are seeking value, middle income, balances, not fully convinced. The biggest FOMO group, want a bit of grandma, want a bit of stay at home, want a bit of development, social, very busy. Timetables are crazy, no single routine. The balances, still a third of the market. In the UK, the partners are increasing. Essential need, convinced about how good early education really is for their child. So you don't have to convince them anymore that early education is good. In the middle cohort, they still need a bit of convincing because they're like, maybe grandma's better, maybe I'm better. This cohort is convinced, but you've got to deliver for them. Otherwise, they will churn. So what are the differing needs? We can go into that. We do some cluster analysis. We try to look at behaviors based on income. What is really important? So the explorer, the low frequency user, I want to see how this fits in before I depend on it. They have no dependency on this because Johnny's being somewhere else 4 days a week. So 1 or 2 days they're dabbling. How do we actually get them to use more? What do they like? They're always testing your trust. You're basically in a test all the time with the explorer cohort. They're testing different, you know, is the teacher connected to my child? Is it the right development? It's a hard cohort to serve. In fact, if you can stop magnetizing these people, you probably have a smoother operation. Every customer is not equal. This one is tough because they're testing your staff, they're testing head office. They are not convinced that this really is. So the real key here is moving them to the 3-day. So that they're not in test mode anymore. The balancer, the mid-frequency user, they are the people who have a very weird 5-day routine. 3-day here, 1 day at home, 1 day with grandma. So they're the whiteboard families with everything, who picks up who from where. It's not the everyday. Now, for this particular, this works as long as nothing changes. They are very routine sensitive because change for them We may not know, but change for them, they're already dealing with a very complicated week. Change for them, they're very sensitive to. So suddenly, if we suddenly change our menus, if we suddenly change the way the child is settling in the morning, this particular cohort is going to be the most sensitive to it. They don't necessarily like change. They are juggling the most. Keep everything, reinforce routine with them, reinforce how great everything is smooth. They are always protecting stability. They're very, very small buffers for change in their life. So this is something, even center managers need to be aware of. Those kids that come in 3 days a week, don't throw change at them. They will create churn. The maximizers, this has to work. You have to deliver value every day. A high dependency on care. Care is an infrastructure for them, for their life. They have high standards. They really, communication is really around issues. So you have to and these guys have high expectations of qualification, experience, and communication. So that's a summary. And you can read into those 3 personas. But now we want to get into, well, who's most likely to churn in the next 12 months? So when we looked at the 12-month data, the balancers and the partners are less likely to churn. So they're quite stable, but still about a fifth. The explorers are most likely to churn. So not only did they cost you a lot on Google, they only enroll you, because Google can't tell if it's a 1-day person that's booking that tour or a 5-day person, but they are attracted to certain things that we don't want to be amplifying. Their needs are different. So, when do they churn? So explorers churn mostly in the first 3 months. More bad news. You've spent on them, you've done the tour, you spent on Google, they're only doing 1 day a week with you, and they're likely to churn in the first 1 to 3 months. So, this is really tricky customer if we're attracting it in the database. The balancers have a churn peak of 4 to 6 months. They need to know that you really fit into their day-to-day logistics. The partners, more stable over time. So in the balancer cohort, if you get a 3-day enrollment, think of the acquisition journey as the first 6 months. Get Johnny all the way to 6 months. Otherwise, this 3-day user can still churn because they still have an alternative. The other 2 days is either mum and dad or dad working from home. It only takes twisting of a manager's hand to increase that by 1 day. Oh, Johnny needs to come out of care for 1 day. Can I just do 1 more day from home, at least for the next 6 months? They have something in their profession or a grandparent or an alternative care available where churn is possible. There is a possibility, it just needs a bit of a, so they still could churn up to 6 months if they have doubts on safety, routine, or needs, because there is an alternative. All of them did center tours quite evenly, but the balancers and partners do more than 2 center tours. So when you get someone in that says, I need 3 to 5 days enrollment, think of it as that you have at least 3 others in the mix that you're competing with, not 1 other. In the Explorer, they're probably just dabbling with 2 centers. So that changes how we do the final question time, how we sell in our proposition. We're not just necessarily competing with 1. In the higher lifetime value customer, they're doing 3 tours at a minimum before they're choosing. I won't get too much into this. Their biggest impact is educator supervision and cleanliness. These 2 are the biggest. And the search profiles for partners, especially those that use you high frequency, recommendations from family and friends are really number 2 place where they look before they make that big 5-day decision. On the other hand, explorers, because there's not that much at stake, Google search, online reviews, and provider websites is really important. For partners, Google search recommendations and online reviews. They don't even care how your own website looks, as long as it doesn't look like it's from the 1980s with Microsoft icons all over it, which I don't think anyone in this room has, because you spend a lot of dollar on marketing. The high value customers, for them, reviews, online recommendations, and friends and family are even more than your own website. For explorers, they're more exploring your website, looking at, how the colors look, what your curriculum looks. So it's really about where we're going to invest. Are we investing more on this side or on the other side? Because that will define what type of customer you're getting. We obviously can't invest everywhere. So for explorers, I guess the summary is win in the early trust window. They are likely to churn in the first 3 months. They're just exploring one day here or there. Your center teams need to know that we really need to show that Johnny's settled, he's getting an upside in development, in social learning. We need to move this customer to the 2-3 day so that they're more embedded in their routines, because otherwise their churn abilities, and they're always testing and trialing you. And we want to get out of that. In balances, the opportunity really is protect the routine. Say, we are here to help with your routine. We are here to make everything easy. Easy is a word for this one. Pick up, drop off, everything has to be easy, practical, access, hours, availability matter to them, and they really want that. And partners reinforce value, because partners, once in a quarter, they're likely to look at their credit card statements or their bank statements. They're like, oh my God, you're really big basket. You cannot underestimate how much value reinforcement needs to be done here. Not all of it will be funded. So they may think you're valued, but we've got to reinforce the value we're bringing through social development, safety, educator investments. For this cohort, reinforce values and increase in standards over time to keep them, and they will stay. This cohort is really interested in the fact that I thought you were valuable, but keep showing me that you are driving value in my life, because you are a really expensive part of the life. All right, so that was really around those key personas. How do we can't personalize everyone's experience. Tech companies will tell you we'll personalize everything. No one can personalize. But even if we can break it up from those explorers, balancers, and those full-time users, and just have a bit of nuance around how we migrate them, that has huge benefits to your lifetime value. Now, we always ask, well, what is the ideal experience? Like, you're talking about the fact that you're going to churn, you're doing all these tours. What is it that you're looking for with your nursery provider? What are the desired features? Well, more qualified educators. Guess what? Everyone thinks everyone is unqualified. That's not the case. Everyone is qualified. This is perception of qualification. We've got to keep reinforcing the perception. Stronger health, safety, and well-being curriculum, flexible pricing. Remember, this is a generation that's grown up on Afterpay, Before Pay, fintech going wild. They've had flexibility in their home loans. They've had flexibility everywhere. I'm actually looking for the fact that there is likely to be disruption in the sector around payment. I went the other day to get my daughter braces. Oh my God, those have gone up crazy. But there's all these fintech providers that are now making that really expensive moment doable. Still really expensive, but flexibility has been brought into that sector that wasn't there, that you had to sort of chop off an arm to get braces or something. It's crazy. Flexible pricing is a need in the market. How and who makes the first move and how we make this happen is very tricky. Better extended pickup times. People want extended pickup times. They're racing in, picking up Johnny last minute, depending on where you're located. If you're in a city versus, closer to home type of, it's worth experimenting with. Are people willing to pay a premium for a little bit of ease on that extension of time? Half an hour more, an hour more, 5 quid more. Would you like that service? Does it make, for all the curriculum that parents want in the world, An extension of time might be just what they need. You know, some of these big moving items may not, you know, people not need. Easier pick up and drop off. This continues to come up. So this isn't based on my data, but my son moved schools last year. We moved areas, and in grade 4 he moved schools, and the grandparents love this new school. It is a better school, but you know why they love it? The school has a drive-through for pickup. So you hold Kabir's name in one window, and by the time you drive to the next window, he gets shoved in the car. The grandparent, yeah, like he's diving in. He's a 10-year-old boy. And my parents who do pick up twice a week, they love it. They can't stop talking about this drive-through. They haven't talked about the great education we're paying for. They're like, oh, I love the drive-through. Because otherwise these grandparents, from when they were in early education, used to go there half an hour before, not to get a ticket, park and sit in the car and pick up Kabir. But now they're like, I love this new school. It's got a drive-through. Literally, it's got a card, one teacher standing there SMSing, and the other one just puts Kabir in. And it's super convenient. And it's creating a bit of a moat. Like the drive-through is really good. I've got to battle the grandparents if he has to move schools because they love the pickup. But you know, these are innovative strategies that people are using because parents are more frazzled. Parking fines are at this moment where cash is really constrained, really hurting people. Any type of, you know, there's no room left in the household budget to do anything crazy. People are just, and then we are in a time where there is more geopolitical tension. So people are coming into pickups and drop-offs more frazzled than ever. And that's something our centre directors need to know, that if they have to, you know, run around to find a hat, a drink bottle, that parent is dealing with a lot of different. So can we unfrazzle the parent? There's huge premium in that. Okay, so I won't go too deep into it, which persona values which driver. We will share this report. It means that if we invest in that, or maybe not invest in that, we already invested, but we amplify that in our go-to-market, we are going to attract that behavioral segment to our database. Dream experience. So what's going to win more customers into the nursery environment? Better facilities, qualified educators, quality holiday programs, easier pickup and drop off, extended pickup time. Willingness to switch for extended pickup time and easier pickup and drop off is very high. For all the curriculum and learning, their willingness to switch is higher if you make it easier. Everything in this market is about ease. That is why Uber Eats can charge for a $10 Big Mac or probably a £6 Big Mac, £6 delivery fees. It's 100% premium on ease. Easy is winning everywhere. Amazon is not the cheapest. We work heavily in retail. Amazon is not the cheapest provider. 20% premium on most items. Easy. Easy returns, easy buying, easy delivery. The premium on ease is sitting anywhere between 20 and 70% right now in the market. So that's something to think about. Can we bring some easy into our offering? What makes it easy for parents? In wraparound, extended pickup times, even more of a requirement. Qualified at quality holiday programs. So they're really looking for that. When we said also, we wanted to not just give them options, we really wanted to keep it very open-ended. Flexibility, flexible booking options. We are in a world of not BAU. Even as we walk out, we don't know what next week brings. People are looking for a feeling and perception of flexibility. If you do have flexibility, talk about it. We are flexible as things change for you. As your job situation changes, as things change, we are the most flexible provider in the market. You can go up and down. People will value flexibility, and then they're looking for simplicity. They're still looking for ready-to-go dinners. It all comes back to ease. Make it easy for me. Even more than, you know, fees and things like that. They may say fees is problem, but the same people are spending $10 for delivery. or £10. So wraparound care, flexible. Flexibility, again, is coming up number one. Pick-up times, make it easier. It all talks to, if you walk away with nothing, if in your strategy you can play to ease of any sort, market share will be there and premium. And then we asked, well, if some of these things are provided to you, extended hours, flexibility in booking, are you willing to pay a premium? And remember, this is a customer who's already stretched. More than 90% of the market in nursery is willing to pay a premium of 5% and up. They're very well aware that flexibility ease, it's a whole cohort of behavior that's coming through that will pay for ease. So anything from 5%, 10% to 20%, and then we also did a persona breakdown. In the partners, which is your most valuable customer, the 5-day customer, they are willing to pay a higher premium. So not only will they stay with you longer, they're less likely to churn. Johnny's more settled, so they're more easier cost to serve, less complaints, all of that. They are willing to pay a premium if you provide ease and some of these services, and they're willing to pay the highest premium. You're really essential. Now, what's NPS in the market? So overall market NPS, this doesn't include the really NPS focused providers, those that are measuring, looking at metrics, compensating. Overall in the market, this includes mum and dad providers, single operators, because this is a market study, plus 26, which means the market is really up for grabs. Not everyone is recommending super happy, and it really also reinforces that there is impending churn and ability to grab market share. Nursery slightly better than wraparound. Our current benchmark for Resonate using our global average is sitting at 66. So those that are measuring and operating at a very different level, there's a tale of two cities here. Like there's a big spread in the market of what is getting delivered and how it's getting delivered. And then the good news is your partners have the highest NPS. You could say, and it's correlation, so we don't know what's causation. Those that use you more like you more, and those that like you more use you more. So I don't know which comes first, but if they travel together, it means that even if you could move any one of these levers, get people to use you more, then they're likely to be more stable customers, bringing more customers to you. So if you could move usage, you're going to move NPS. Or if you move NPS, or if you move their satisfaction or recommendation levels, you're likely to get them to use you more. So both of these are traveling together, which is great. So the key is to focus on certain key attributes which will get the friction away, make ease easier, and get them using you more. And their lifetime value doesn't just increase from their own usage. They are talking about you very positively in segments of society where their 1 degree of separation is probably with 2 working parents or other parents who are also within that same demographic. So they're likely to bring you more of those high value customers. So it is that, flywheel of, I wanted to do a lot of other things, but the internet in this room is not working. So that's all. So today we really covered some really important facts around where the market is at. It is in non-cemented mode. Everything is not set in stone. We're not in BAU. There is a lot of market share to be had with great providers. Tours are being run way better than they used to be run. The welcoming, the follow-ups are really green across the market, but there are areas where you could really differentiate your tour in giving more space for questions. We looked at the 3 behavioral personas, and then we also looked at what are some of the unmet needs. What would people pay a premium for if we could do some of this? So thank you everyone for sitting through that quite a rapid session of insights. We love bringing this to you. And we will share this report at the end. Thank you so much. Paul?
Awesome. Thank you, Misa. No, I really appreciate it. We've just come off the back of this same report across Australia, and what's been really clear to us is the hunger for insights, for data to make change in your businesses as well. And we do apologise on behalf of Resonate. We would usually have a table set in where, you know, would be sort of a working lunch and eating through it, but, you know, due to the demand, and we want to fit everyone in, so we're definitely going to have to look for a bigger venue next time. So please grab some food on the way out and make sure you're well hydrated. So for us, you know, we appreciate your time to be here today. Time is a commodity, and, you know, having a fantastic mix of leaders in the space, in this room, from all different shapes and sizes across the sector, but the challenges remain the same. So, you know, where we've delivered insights, you'll see in this report, we'll deliver to you very shortly. Some of our partners, we deliver these insights on a daily basis. And what we want to show you today is, you know, a little bit about what Resonate does. You know, we're not just a company that puts on nice lunches and insights reports, although it is probably one of my favourite parts of this job, traveling around the world and eating and delivering these reports. But more importantly, it's about your business and about how we can make change, how we can put data and insights into your hands so the people on the front lines can make real change for things that are affecting, you know, in your network. If you've got a network of, you know, why are these centres at full occupancy with a great wait list and the other ones struggling a little bit more? You know, these are the changes that the insights that can affect change, and put them into your hands immediately. The other components is, you know, operational efficiency and what's happening there. The tour conversion, as Meeta was talking about today, you know, the tour conversion across your network and different factors that can affect that as well. So we want to put that insight into your hands, and we want to play you a short video to explain a little bit more. So please.
When expectations are evolving exponentially, the line between what customers want and what companies deliver has never been thinner. Customer experience is the real growth engine. Those that understand flourish. Most companies that don't are slowly drowning. Meet Resonate CX, the AI-powered platform born from the idea that feedback should fuel transformation, not frustration. Every second customer feedback floods in from every channel. Our real-time AI captures every voice, filters the noise, and routes insights to the right teams instantly. Because great CX shouldn't be complicated. We make it easy, human, and fast. Go live in 3 weeks, act in 3 clicks, and grow in 3 months. That's why users love us. Our award-winning platform helps deliver exceptional family experiences and trusted by the world's most child-focused early learning centers. Behind it all are the best minds from around the world. Engineers, designers, data scientists, and CX analysts, building technology that makes customer experience effortless, scaling fast worldwide, driven by one purpose: make CX your competitive edge. The way customer experience should have been all along.
Love that video. A little bit biased, but no, we wanted to give you just a little bit of a flavour about what we do. I know our partners do, you know, many of you in the room know exactly what we do here as well, but we do have something to show you as well. You know, for us, we align our whole business to your strategy in terms of what's going to make a difference in terms of performance, building trust, building advocacy across the families, reducing churn, increasing tour conversion. There's so much opportunity, and really enjoy the conversations as well with many of you before about, you know, your plans for the future, about scaling your businesses, scaling more centres, more locations, getting better in operational efficiency. So, but also managing risk. So we've got a couple of different pieces of technology. We're a tech company. We've released 3 new modules, which we want to show you today. And, you know, these events we do every year. So we'll be back next year, new insights reports, taking you guys through everything, and probably releasing more features as well. So this is all about identifying risk earlier, surfacing true drivers for your centre performance,